Raja, a son of a telephone linesman. He studied up to standard 3 and then dropped out. Because of the environment that he grew up, very soon he took up to gambling, stealing and drinking. Now stealing means he was not a very big thief, a petty thief he started out with, just to support or finance his short of for drink and short for drugs. Now this habit of stealing continued to the extent of one day he stole his mother's wedding sari, and a week later he was again short of money. He even didn't spare a Mangal Sutra, pawned it with a broker and had his drink. Now though his name was Raja, he was always a pauper. Now this was a real irritant and he was a nuisance to his family. He was not at all liked by his family members. His friends also deserted him. A time came when his family members said, "Why don't you just leave this house and let us live in peace? Because every day there's a problem or there's some complaints coming regarding your misbehavior on the streets." And that's when he thought, one day at night, he just left his home. And he took to the streets, and very soon he was again penniless. He was begging, started sleeping in the bus shelters, and sometimes near the garbage bins, fighting with the rabid dogs for leftover food. Now, all through these years, he was thinking, what can I do? But never he could come to terms with his mind. Then he thought he should make some good living. For some time he started driving auto. He became a bouncer in a pub. And he became a bodyguard to a local neta. But nothing worked. There was a constant struggle between his heart and his mind. And he couldn't come to terms, where could I focus and where could I lead by leading this kind of life? There was a continuous turmoil in his mind. That's when one day his friend told him, "Raja, life will be a blessing for those who use it for the service of others." At that particular time, it didn't strike him. But one day, after a hard day's work as an auto driver, he was riding back home. He happened to see an old lady, frail, almost breathing her last, on the pavement. Passers-by walked. Nobody cared for her. A few who were emotional, they threw a few pennies and walked by. That's when he stopped his auto and went close to her and found that she was so frail, he couldn't make out whether she was living or dead. And touched, there was some life in her. And that's when, without batting an eyelid, he just picked her up, put her in the auto, and took her home. Now his house was a very small tenement. And in front of his house, there was just a space, just enough to park a scooter, you can see. And there he gave her a cot to sleep, bathed her, nursed her wounds, and gave her some food. But there was no response. For some time, for a day or two it went on, and then slowly she started picking up her health and she regained her consciousness, and that's when he felt a little better. Now this sort of activity started continuing. He felt wherever he saw people in distress, people abused, people who were thrown out by the house and living on the streets, whenever he saw them, he used to bring them home and nurse them, feed them. In spite of his poverty, where he couldn't even manage his own family, but he did it. Now, as usual, the neighbors started talking and they found it as a nuisance they started suspecting whether he's got some link with some hospitals for trading organs. And the victims also suspected because they were all the time used to getting abuses from their close and dear family members, their friends, stone throwing by the passers-by. And for them, living a life among the stray dogs was more dignified than living with people. But Raja didn't stop his work. He went on working relentlessly in this direction. And every time he brought some people, rather lived for a week or so and died, and then he saw them, he gave them a decent burial. Where it was not allowed, he even approached the municipal authorities and saw to it that they cremated. Looking at his work and his noble intention, an organization called India Every Home Crusade came forward and donated half an acre of land. It's towards the airport road, Baglu Road. You have a place called Kothnur, and there he was given this place. And soon this house was called a home of hope, and they started an organization called the New Ark Mission of India. Now today it houses more than 450 people, inmates are there, and more than 3,500 people have passed through this house after being cared, nursed, and put back on the rails of life. And some didn't live long there, but they were able to die peacefully, die with dignity. He says there were even very small petty wishes in their dying moments. They asked, like want to have an apple, or want to have a Pepsi, saying a masala dosa, saying the wishes were so small, but all through that life they could never have them. But I saw to it that their wishes were fulfilled at those dying moments. And in the last 14 years, he says about more than 175 people have died, but they have died a dignified death. Every month he gets around 10 to 15 people who are rescued, or sexually abused, or thrown out of their people, thrown out of their own members of the family, disowned by their own children, and they are brought to this home of hope. For his kind of service and that kind of act of work towards humanity, he has won many awards. He was recently recognized as the greatest Indian by the CNN IBN TV channel. And then he had also won many Karnataka state awards. Now friends, why do I tell this story? I tell this story because we live in a world full of selfish materialism. Joint families have been reduced to nuclear unit families. The definition of families today has gone nothing beyond me, my wife, and maybe one or two kids. It doesn't go beyond that. We have stopped looking beyond the fence. We do not even know who our immediate neighbors are. We have come to that particular situation. We have become so isolated in our own islands of world. Togetherness has come as a contract with riders with a lot of terms and conditions. It has conveniently been decimated to live-ins, and the product is called love child. So where is the hope for tomorrow? Friends, fortunately for angels or messiahs like this man, because he used to drive an auto rickshaw, he was also titled as Auto Raja, who has kept the hope alive. We don't have to wait for another Mother Teresa to come from a foreign land and to do service for us. All you have to ask yourself, what can I do? What can I do? How will I be able to contribute? The answer lies within us. A small helping hand, a small act of charity, a small moment of say 15 or half an hour, spending together with these people and spending for togetherness can change their morrow, and the same persons can find life worth living and contribute to the social well-being. Friends, I tell you, if you try this, I am sure your life can be an efficacious one. Before I move on and give the lecture, I will call upon a person who will carry forward this meeting. This person is one of the Toastmasters who is so passionate about public speaking, and the way he has come forward in so many ways helping the club. And this time he even went to the extent that in spite of his busy schedule, I want to be a sergeant at arms so that I can serve the club in the most passionate way I can contribute in whichever way possible. The best thing I want to be is a sergeant at arms. And he is so dedicated and so meticulous. I tell you, he has learned his job before he could take up this office. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the Toastmaster of the day, Mr. Vaidya.